Hey, welcome back to the 626 podcast. It's been a minute, but we're back.
Bit.
And we are ready to roll for the new year.
Yes.
New year, new us. Same us.
New year, same us.
Somewhat new us.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So for
That's true.
For those watching, it's probably a giveaway. Tori, you want to talk about it?
I'm with child.
That is a weird way to put that. Tori's pregnant. We're
I'm
second
pregnant
kid.
with our second boy.
So obviously we've been a little busy.
So.
Oh, jeez. Jesus, didn't mean like that.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's a bite.
Right. That's a soundbite for something. That'll go on the TikToks. That
was fantastic. I love that. So yes, I am pregnant with our second
Awesome.
boy.
So we're trying to get ahead of everything and be more consistent this year with posting.
I mean, that's been our word.
So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about, because I think that was really what we had discussed when we wanted to do this episode was like, okay, it's January. It is goal season. Everybody's starting their new thing. Gyms are offering their signups.
Gyms offer their low signups.
So we were going to talk about really how to attack this year and be productive, because for the last, how long do you think it's been? A few months, 6 months, 5 months?
Since what?
Since we kind of started a new trend, especially for me, like a new mental state, I guess.
You started that, dude.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like end of last year. So probably the last like 5 months. I mean, like.
Really going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of like changed our perspective on things. And that really got us hunkering down and hitting the ground running with a lot better consistency and effectiveness. I think are the key ones. And I think a lot of people, if they're listening and they're in the freelance world or in general, really, they have started this year with the mindset of like, okay, it's a new us, it's a new time. I'm really going to hit the ground running. I'm going to accomplish these things, or I want to be here.
Which, I mean, there's something about starting over, starting fresh.
There's like a psychological study done. I can't remember. It was referenced in the book with like Atomic Habits, I think. And the guy references like there's like this new age or new mindset. There's something to like us mentally going, okay, new year, I can start fresh, or new month, I can start fresh. It's why our brains are naturally drawn to like
new things.
We'll start fresh next week, or we'll start fresh at the month. We'll start fresh.
We have to start
here.
at the top. We can't. I don't want to go halfway. It's Wednesday, so we'll give it the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Monday is like
it's
start of the week. Start fresh.
The way we're wired, it's sometimes very difficult for us to start in the middle of it. Yeah. So like, I think what we start with is basically let's talk about like what changed for us, like for me especially,
yeah,
and then kind of go into like how people can apply that and apply a method of that. And the idea here is not that like I'm a guru and I have figured it all out. It's more of like
guru.
I think like we should take this perspective, like listen to someone's perspective, analyze it, and adapt it, because that's kind of what I did.
I mean, that's the other thing too, is like a lot of times when you're looking for particular information about things. It just like clicked in my head, but like, when you're looking for tutorials or you're looking for specific things and you can't like find those things that are like giving advice on the way that you're trying to approach something, it's like, then just say it yourself, how you did it, you know? So.
No, I think that's dead on. Like, I think that's exactly what it is. So, giving some backstory last year, it was the year after, it was the first year since my mom passed. And going into that year, I thought things were really good. I thought mentally I was fine. I can just push through. But there was a lot still there that was just really difficult. And it got towards the summertime. You know, business was slower, and I'd been throwing a lot of my weight into just as long as I'm working and keeping busy, that's fine.
Which is normal.
That's
normal.
But when the summer hit, it was slow. There was less work, so there's less to distract. And it just became this real... I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was depressed. Like, I very much was just in a very sad state.
It was probably the lowest of low.
It was very low. And I really just I did not want to continue, to be straight. Like, I was just so beat. But I think in that moment, there was the realization of like, okay, like this is the analogy that really stuck with me. And this is my new like analogy that I've been going through. I was like, I'm so sick of being on this island. And then it hit, like, for some weird reason, the idea of like, okay, then why the hell are you on the island? And I was like, this sounds dumb, but like the analogy that kept playing in my head and it has become a big part of like my thing is like so many people that whether they want to get into freelance, whether they're in a career positions, so many people have the same thing and they say the same thing over and over again. I'm just surviving. I'm just trying to get through it. I'm just trying to go through it.
Which, I mean, we said a lot of.
We said a lot
like,
of.
Not even just last year, but like many
In
years.
general.
For the last few years, it's been a lot of like, well, if we just get, like, I just need to, I mean, especially because like you were backlogged on stuff and it was like, if I could just get caught up, if I could just get this, if I could just get to this point, if I could just, then I'll have enough time to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Like, you know, it was a lot of just like, if I could just get there.
Exactly.
Then it'll be fine.
And that was like the mindset kind of, especially in that time of like, okay, I'm in a slow season. Everything's awful. I'm miserable. Like I'm not happy. I'm still depressed. I'm dealing with the loss of my mom. I'm dealing with the loss of like my faith. I'm dealing with all of these things. And what ended up clicking in this idea is that like I have so much, and so this is what a lot of us do, and this is why I was saying like, okay, so many of us work and so many of us have these jobs, and we're put ourselves into positions where we're like, okay, the end goal is not to work this career, the end goal is not to be here, the end goal is something else, and that's off the island. All of us get on the island. The island is the 9 to 5, the 9 is our normal grind, the island is the situation you're in,
Your day to day.
it's something that makes you feel isolated from the original goal. Because an island keeps you separated from where you're supposed to be, like where you feel like your home is. And what ends up happening so often is we just try to survive on the island. And like, think of it like a desert island. Think of like Castaway. Think of like these things. The first thing you're going to do if you're stranded on an island is you're going to try to get out. You're going to work hard to figure it out. And the second thing you're going to do is try to survive. But what ends up happening is if you work for a little bit and you're like, okay, well, I can't get off the island yet. My raft didn't work, which was like, hey, my side hustle didn't work. Hey, this little project didn't work. Like these, the signal, the smoke flares didn't work. Like none of these things are working to get me off the island. Okay. Then you're going to start putting more time into surviving on the island. You're going to make it comfortable on the island. You want to maintain on the island. And eventually the island feels more like home than the end goal. And for me, I was sitting there going, well, I had made everything just feel comfortable and I was bearable and I was surviving on the island. And then I realized that I was so isolated and unhappy on the island that I'd forgotten the original goal was to never be on this island. Like my whole original goal wasn't to be backlogged in editing. It wasn't to feel this way. It wasn't to be in these things. I want off the island. And I got to change my strategy. My strategy can't be to survive and numb pain and numb frustrations and numb these dark spots.
You just kick the can down the line.
Exactly. All we're doing is just kicking the can down the line. All I'm doing is dragging this out longer, when in reality, I need to put my effort into getting off the island.
Yeah.
And that's really what became, all right, I'm going to use this opportunity of like the summertime to figure out how the hell am I getting off this island? And that's when it started to become, okay,
It started with work, I think.
Yeah, everything
Like the
had
editing.
to be everything had to be reevaluated. And that's where I became, okay, how can I be more effective and efficient in my editing? So I started working harder on the editing, started game planning more on the strategizing and really breaking things down to their sub elements, which was something I was already doing, but I just did it to a greater extent. And then I started seeing the situation differently. I said, okay, this is an opportunity, not a detrimental thing. Like this is an opportunity. This is a blessing that I'm not seeing. Okay, so if this is a blessing I'm not seeing, this is an opportunity where it's slow, I can get caught up.
Which ties into, I think, something we want to talk about later of like mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift.
But it's a mindset shift.
So I was like, okay, let me change that. And then the other part of it that's triggered from there. So I started shifting on those edits. I was like, okay, I can't just fall into the situation where I'm going, okay, I want to get out of the hole. I want to get off the island. How do I stay off the island? And that thought started shifting into sustainability. And that was the word that I came to you. I was like, it's sustainability. Sustainability. That's what I need. And that became our thing that we posted in the garage. So we have a whiteboard out there and we wrote on it, which was what you start doesn't matter if you never finish. And it's like, that was it. Because I have such a tendency to start things and get going. And
you
then
started with gusto too.
I start with gusto. We'll talk about like kind of a false flag thing. But like, I'll start with gusto and get going and then it'll burn out. Because then the nitty gritty kicks in. So I was like, okay, how can I build sustainability? And I was like, okay, then I have to reevaluate how my mental state works. And that's when I stumbled across the note method, or like the note taking method, which sounds dumb, but the whole thing was basically reorganizing and offloading to like AI, let the personal assistants take over. And this sounds dumb, but like for me, it worked. And this isn't for everybody. This is not like
this is the way Scott's brain works.
For me, I have a great memory. I'm really good at keeping track of things.
Very analytical.
But I don't have to waste my brain power during the day in processing all that information. So now what I do is I put a lot of stuff in my notes. Everything falls into the notes. So I use Apple Notes religiously now. And it's like after a meeting, notes. If we're planning out something, it goes in the notes. Everything is in the notes, and I can go reference it later. A quote that inspires me goes in the notes. If I'm studying the Bible, boom, goes in the notes. Everything is in this notes app, and the reason I put it all there is because it's searchable, one. So a lot of people will write it down. I have terrible handwriting. I'll never be able to read what I wrote. You know this. But the idea in all this is that, hey, I've offloaded this like mental capacities, brain power a little bit. I can search it, and now I can be more creative and more like, hey, this moment inspired me and made me think about this quote over here. Let me reference it. Let me look back on it. And that just started this trend because I'd seen a YouTube video. I saw this thing, and I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. I gave it a shot, and I was really impressed with mentally how clear my mind was. And that allowed me to start really being more productive and start thinking and game planning things. And then what really clicked from there was, okay, if I'm going to do anything, I have to have a battle plan. Like if life is a war, if life is a battle, you got to have a battle plan. You got to have something that's going to keep you on track to the end goal. Because goals are great. We've always done goals. We've set goals. But do we have those clear steps in how we're going to accomplish those goals? And they were obvious. We were doing some of it. Like, hey, I wanted to read 12 books. Okay, well, then I need to read a book a month if I'm going to read 12 books in a year. Yeah. That's an obvious one. But, like, it would get less obvious in other things that were more abstract of, like, hey, I want to work out more. Okay.
How are you going to
define more?
Like, yeah.
What does that look like?
I want to be active.
So, that became a thing. And, like, that's really what sparked the change. And, like, I was like, okay, I'm sick of being on the island. I'm going to start committing to these things, and I'm going to commit in a way that's like for example, a big one was weight loss. Like I want to lose weight. I want to get back into shape. Like I was in a shape, but not the shape I needed to be. Like, so my idea was like, okay, I have to diet. Like there is no, like every trend in the world doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have to have a caloric deficit. How do I create that? So I found an app and I was like, I'm going to follow this, like, track everything I eat, and I'm going to try to keep my calories down.
Which that was hard.
And at first, I started my old way, which was like, going, okay, boom, I'm going to drop it down to the lowest level, and I'm just going to go with it. And I almost passed out so many times.
Yeah, that first 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. It was 2 weeks. You were starving yourself.
I was miserable.
Starving yourself.
Because I was like, I need to lose 1.5 pounds a week and I'll hit my goal. And then the word sustainability came back and I go, okay, this isn't sustainable.
Not in the slightest.
So I need to find a new plan. And so I reevaluated my plan, went down to like, hey, my goal is to lose 0.5 pound. Let's lose 0.5 pound a week. It's much slower, but it's sustainable. And that really clicked into place. And then I think I was like 20 something pounds by the end of the year I'd lost. Because then I started introducing other elements because I was like starting to see success there. Same with golf. I was able to like see success in it. I was like, okay, if I put in this plan and I work on these goals, like I can really get to places. All of that to say, going into this year, like our big thing was like, okay, let's keep momentum, but let's be sustainable. Our goal is to get off the island. We don't want to make it comfortable on the island. We can survive on the island fine, but we want to make sure that we're always working towards our end goal, which is to get off the island, to be in a different position. So we really buckled down on like, okay, tighter budgets. We really want to make sure that like we're hitting our end goals and like we're fully funding our retirements. We're fully funding these things. We want to make sure those are getting hit. We want to position our kid and our future kid into positions where they can be, able to have a better life than even we had.
Children.
Exactly.
Multiples.
So those were kind of the things that started to click into place. So I know people listening are like, well, that's just because you work for yourself and you have a great opportunity and like that's just the way it is. But like what I want to make sure people hear in this is not that like copy my methods and they're going to be perfect. I'm not selling you a step-by-step process. All of this stuff is on YouTube and Google and like you can search all of it. My biggest thing that I'm pointing out and I think are key takeaways is one, remember what the end goal is. Remember that you're not trying to stay on the island.
Which is also like write it down somewhere or like put it somewhere you can see it, put it on your bathroom mirror, put it on something. Like,
Yes.
I mean, cause that was something different that we did. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
That was something that we did this year. Cause we have a calendar that's like
it's public in our hallway.
In our hallway.
Right at the entrance.
Everyone sees it. We see it every time we pass it, to walk out the door. And it's like, we chose to write our family goals up on the calendar because it's got like spaces for like priorities, to do, remember, on top of like having the actual calendar.
Yeah.
And we chose to write them up there because I don't think we've ever actually written our goals out like that.
No, they've usually stayed in our phones.
Yeah.
Or like on
and
paper.
So it's like, that's something that, which I think we honestly, we need to find a place to put our work goals too. But it's like, I think putting it somewhere where you can see it, because it really does make a difference. Because you look at, like, I see it every single day, and I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, we put that on our goal list. Oh, yeah, cool. And it's like, because you forget, that's a lot of stuff. Like,
and I think even like people and friends coming through the house have stopped and looked at it and been like, oh, that's a goal, and you're like reminded, oh, that's a goal. And also there's a level of accountability. Like, I don't want to embarrass myself and be like, yeah, I set that goal, but I didn't actually try on it.
Yeah. And it's noticed that you just said, you said I didn't try instead of, yeah, I didn't hit it. Like, because you might not hit all your goals.
Exactly.
But I mean, and that was something that you had told me, because it was with my book thing. Because I set a goal for myself to read 10 books last year, because I've never been that much of a reader until recently. And like last year, really just like, I don't know what it was. Something kicked me in the pants. And I was like, I want to read books. Which then I'm like, what happened to me? But I wanted to read 10 books. I set a goal for the year. I did not reach the 10 books.
Yeah.
And I was like, kind of like, man, that sucks. I didn't reach it. And you were like, yeah, but you read 6. Like, that's 6 more books that I've ever seen you read in the years that I've known.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, because I had a goal set for myself, even though I didn't reach it, I still did way better than I have ever.
Yeah. And when we sat and made our personal goals this year and like our family goals, because we did a meeting at the beginning of the year, we were like, hey, this is a goal day. We're going to go work on our goals at a coffee shop and like plan out together what our goals were going to be. And that's an important thing, I think, as a couple, is to have like, hey, what are your goals? What are my goals? How can we connect those goals?
How can we help each
and
other?
What are our family goals? So we have personal goals. So you have goals, I have goals. We have family goals, which are like our personal family overall. Here's where we want as a team. And then we have a company goals, which are, hey, in business, here's where we want to be. So we have 4 sets of goals, essentially, really 3 for each person. But I think 4 is actually more practical, because your goals are in some sense my goals. Like, I want to see you succeed on those goals. So, and you want to see me succeed on my goals. So, okay, how do we work together on that? With 2 kids, that means, hey, you may be like, hey, I need to read right now. Okay, then I'm taking the kids for now so you can keep reading, because I want you to succeed on those goals.
Well, we also had to rework like your workout schedule.
Yeah, we reworked my workout schedule.
You were waking up in the morning, and like, I mean, it also kind of tied into, because you were like, I don't think this is sustainable for me, because like you're like, we tried. That's the whole thing too, is like trying different methods, but like we had to talk about, I'm very like, no, I got it. It's fine. You can, you go do what you got to do. Like, it's cool. I've got it. Like, I've got it. It's okay. I've got it. And you're like, no. Like, listen, you're really good at what you do. Like, you're great, but like, that's not sustainable for you. And you're going to go insane, and it's going to be a lot. And so, you shifted. We talked about shifting, which it's actually worked out really well. Yeah. Kind of, instead of, because usually you hit that like afternoon slump. Yeah. So then putting your workout in the afternoon instead of early in the morning. Yeah. So that way you can be present and help me with the boys. And then, which I think is really great, because it's we wanted to shift that to get it in place and try and get it consistent before Mason gets here. Exactly. So that's something, and I think it's worked out really well, but it was like, we sat down and we talked about, what do you think would be a better alternative to help us reach that? That way, because working out is important. Yep. Staying active is important. Yep. So how do we arrange it and organize it to get it in a way that it is consistent and it is sustainable? Yeah. And I think, so like, if you're taking something away from that part, it's set sustainable but good goals. So like, there's going to be a lot of people that'll be like, hey, set achievable goals. I personally don't like the idea of setting achievable goals, because I think people will aim for like,
I want to read one book this year and I want to breathe. And it's like, okay, well, those are goals.
You can do that.
You can do those things, and those things are pretty easy. But the problem with those is you'll probably knock them out by February, and then you're going to go, okay, I'm all done.
Yeah.
And like, listen, if you need a pat on the back, do it by all means. Set up some goals that you can go, I did great.
Yeah.
But also, I think that stuff can be false feedback. It can give you a false positive of like, look how productive I am. I did it. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm like, no, set goals that you look at right now and are going, I might not make that.
Like they got to stretch you a little bit. How are you going to grow if you don't get stretched a little?
Exactly. And the idea then is like, hey, at the end of the day, it's not so much about succeeding at every single goal. It's about taking the steps to get to those goals because the journey is where you learn. The goal is just the goal. It's great. Awesome. Checkbox. Like, but as you take those steps and on those journeys, like, listen, my goal last year was I wanted to break 80. That was a big thing in golf. Okay.
For people who are not golfers, go ahead and elaborate what that means.
So golf is the less strokes you take, the better, right? Average is like 100. I wanted to go into the point where I could break 80 in a round. Which
means that you wanted to score under 80.
Correct. I wanted to shoot 79 or below is essentially what I was looking for. Okay.
So just for people who don't golf that don't understand.
Yeah. And like, that wasn't the goal. That was what I wanted to do. And it was great when I did it. I accomplished it. I felt awesome. I was like, this is so cool. And then the rush was gone within like a couple of days. I was like, there's no parade. No one's like excited. Everybody was like, cool, that's awesome.
Kind of feels like Joe in Soul, where he finally gets the jazz gig and he's like, yes. And then he gets done and he like looks at Dorothea and he's like, so what happens now? And she's like, you go home and you come back tomorrow and we do it again. And he's like, wait, what? That's it? Like, I've been wanting to do this for so long, and this has been like my dream. This is the thing. Yep. And then he does it and realizes that it's just like, cool.
Yeah. And like, so for me, I was like, holy crap. Okay, that's it. The goal's done. Like, now what? And I was like, kind of felt a little off. But then what I realized was like, okay, the goal was great. I'm glad I did it. But I'm really happy that like, you know, there were days when I was like, okay, I would wake up at 5, get some stuff done. And then like once Caden was ready, I was off to the course when it opened at 7 for an hour and a half, come back. Like that was my work. And like, I didn't so much like what I took away from that was more of like, hey, that's the determination. What I took away from that goal was not so much that like, hey, this is how you get better at golf. Because golf is like, I'm already back to the higher scores because it's just golf.
Golf is a son of a gun.
You know, it is a sick sport where you have a good week and then you have a bad week and then it's just the way it goes. But what I took away from that was the fact that like it taught me, one, hey, you can do the hard things. Like you can see progress and you can't be afraid to try. Like you cannot continue to exist in that fear. And that's what I think the big takeaway with goal setting is going to be and going into the new year is like, hey, try. Because, and this is what sat with me for the island analogy was like so many times in my life, and we talked about it before on a podcast with like the imposter syndrome and stuff, which was like so many times in my life, I didn't put the effort in that was needed because I was afraid of what if I failed.
And then if you fail, then you're like, well, I didn't even try anyway, so it's fine. Like,
exactly.
I didn't fail because I'm bad at it. I failed because I didn't even try.
And that was your biggest fear. And that was the thing where I was like, okay, my biggest fear is what if I try and I fail and I'm not good? Then you realize when you get older, your biggest fear is not trying and failing. It's not ever giving enough and going, what if? What if is so much worse than, oh, well. Like, that is my big thing. Well, I failed. Oh, well. Is not any, it is bad in the moment, but in 10 years, you look back and go, at
least
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, well. But the if will eat at you forever because it goes,
because it's unknown.
What if? What if you had tried? What if you had done that? What if you had asked that? What if you had said yes to that? What if you had said no to that? What if you had stood up against that? What if you had done this? Will always outweigh the oh well. The oh wells are always going to be, oh well, I survived.
At least you tried.
Exactly. And like that is the big one is like try. So, you know, practically, like if you're listening, practically set some goals. Find your goals, make them difficult, but not impossible. Like I want to learn to breathe in space. Like don't do crazy stuff. But like pick something that's okay, the way you started is like, okay, what is a realistic thing I could possibly do? Okay, now what would that look like if I multiplied that by 5? What would be if I increased that a little bit? What would it look like? That's where your goal is. Set that one. And the next step in that is like, make a plan to reach that goal. Don't just set the goal of like, okay, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, great. How are you going to lose those 20 pounds? And the reason I say make those steps is because it can be really easy to lose sight of the goal. And like, this is something we talked about before we did the podcast, which is like, you can't, if you don't own your mind will own you. If you don't own your day will own you. And what this means is like, okay, one of the big things we do now is like, at least for me for sure, which is every single day that is a work day. Weekends, I'm not this crazy, but every single day, there are 3 things that I am working to accomplish. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a goal in mind, and if you don't write them down, like if you're just mentally like, I need to finish that one project today, that's my goal. If that's it, and your mindset is like, I'll just work on that, everything in your day, you will be a wet noodle going through the day. You will just get, oh, well, somebody asked me to do this. Oh, my wife needs me to do this. Oh, I need to take care of this. I need to do this. And by the end of the day, you're like, I'm just so tired. I'll deal with it tomorrow.
Well, that, and you also like tend to, I mean, at least you do. You tend to be like, I've been robbed. I've been robbed of my time. I've been robbed of this. I've been robbed. Like I needed to finish these things. And then you feel like you've done an inadequate job. And it's like, because that was one big thing that you talked about a lot was I get robbed of my time so easily. Like I let myself get robbed of time.
Yeah. And it's a victim mentality because you're like, I'm getting robbed. People are stealing this from me. And it's like,
no, dude, you giving it away.
You're throwing your money out the window. You're not getting robbed.
Yeah.
You're letting your time get stolen. You're throwing your time away because you're going into the day without any type of plan in place of like how I'm going to do this. This doesn't mean that your plan doesn't get thrown to crap anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, at least you've got somewhat of a structure. But I'm also like,
yeah,
that also comes with, and that's the hard thing to hear because like in those moments, I don't like, if when you're in a victim mentality, it's like for someone to come to you and be like, I mean, actually, you're not being robbed of your time. You're kind of just giving it away.
Yeah, people are getting mad.
You get mad, and it's like,
somebody's probably turned the podcast off right
now. Yeah, you're not being robbed. But it is something to evaluate, but it comes with, and a lot of this, like the goal setting and achieving goals and all of that stuff comes with, it's your own self-awakening too.
Yeah.
Like, and we've talked about like something, there is always something, and this goes into, I think what you wanted to talk about with like what it was like the false flags.
False
and
forces.
False forces. Yeah. Cause it's like something at some point has to kick you in the pants.
You have to be uncomfortable on the island. If you make the island so sustainable, you're just going to be comfortable to live there.
So it's like something has to kick you in the pants and make you go, frick this, dude. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I don't like this. And I need to do something to change.
Yeah. So like the idea of false forces was something that I came up with, and like, it may exist in the reality. I don't believe anything's original, but like my mindset was like, okay, think of it like there is a massive block that you need to move, and you can push on it and you can do all the things, but it's not moving. You need to find another method other than just running full speed at it. Okay. Now what you could do is you can go ahead and get like pulleys. You can wrap them around it. You can set up a pulley system and get counterweights and really just pull the block. It's going to be a slow process, but the block will move. The other option is behind you, there's a big block that you have rockets that you can attach and blast off on. So naturally, that seems like a great way to get it moving. So you launch those rockets, you fire them full force, you hit that block, and it starts moving. I mean, it's hauling butt, and you're riding the block as it's going because the rockets are pushing it. As soon as the rockets stop, momentum kicks in, it's still moving, and then all of a sudden, it starts slowing down. Physics kick in, and you just start slowing down. Got no more rockets left, and now you're like, well, I'm not seeing any progress. Oh, it's not working. I must be and now all the doubt's coming back in. Mm-hmm. So you can get back down and try to push the block again. It's not going to work. The reality is, like, yes, that false force is that initial burst of energy, that initial like, look at this, I'm doing great. I'm gonna sign up for 4 gym memberships. I'm gonna go every day. That's your gusto. That's your gusto. That is I'm going to go to the gym every single morning. I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m., take an ice bath. I'm going to do this, and you jump full force into it, and you have that initial burst. Ooh. where the rocket is pushing that block forward of your goal, and you're going, and then it starts to die out. The reality is, what you needed to do was go and get the stuff in place. Hey, I want to go to the gym every day. Let me start with 2 days a week. Let me get the first pulley on. Okay. Let me wrap the rope around. I'm going to start eating better because I want to get healthier. Okay. I want to launch my business. So I'm going to get the other pulley because realistically, I want to post more on Instagram, but I can't do 10 reels a month. I'm going to do 2 reels a month. It's better than 0. It's a start, and you're adding, because as you get moving and as the block starts getting pulled through those ropes, it's still a lot of work. But as that block initially moves past that resting force, it starts to get easier.
And you can also, that gives you room to build on top of things.
Exactly.
Instead of, just, we're going to throw it all out there and do it. And then it's like, there's no space to be able to like advance. It's kind of like whenever you, at least in my brain, it equates to like working out. You start with a lower weight.
Yeah.
You build up to it, and then you can tack on more weight because it gets easier. And then you get good with that, and then you tack on more weight because it gets easier. So it's like, it gives you room to grow too, which also gives you the like assurance of like, oh, wow, I can do it. I'm doing this thing.
Exactly. And that was kind of like the Kobe mentality. Was like, Kobe was like, listen, you spend an hour here, an hour here, an hour here, and you might not see any progress. But over the course of 3 months, 4 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years, you're going to be stacking up that much more against people, and like how much more progress you've made because you've put in that time and because you've worked on it. Like they start to compound. It's like and compounding interest.
It's also quality time too, that you're like actually taking. It's like you're putting in the effort to take or to like put in good quality time to do and accomplish the things that you're doing. And you're not just doing it a quick, fast way to get it done.
Yep. And that's kind of what I'm hoping people take away from this podcast episode is that, hey, set your goals, lock them in, work together. If you have a partner, if you're like whoever your spouse is, like find them, work with them. Hey, if they don't set goals, be like, hey, let's set some goals. Let's work together. Let's try to get this accomplished because you're a team. Like, how can we do this? How can I find accountability people? But you have to have a strategy in place. Find a change of mindset that creates these strategies, that creates these goals, that allows you to actually hit this year running and not so much of like, and maybe you're listening to this and you're already like, hey, all of my goals failed. I don't have it. You can start over. Okay. New month.
You don't have to wait till January of next year.
Yeah. You can hit the ground running again. But sit down and make sure you take the time to get to that point. Don't just start and like, you're right, I'm going to start again. I'm going to jump and go to the gym every day.
Don't do that.
If you failed already, let's figure out why you failed. Post-mortem. Okay, it didn't work because it's just really, really hard for me to wake up at 5 a.m. Okay, then don't wake up at 5 a.m.
Don't do 5 a.m.
Let's find somewhere else that you can pull time from. And listen, it doesn't mean that you're just going to be like, oh, magical, I'm just going to have time. Time is time. You only have so many hours in a day. You get 24 hours and 8 of it you're sleeping at least.
But you do, that was something that is, everyone makes time for what is important.
Exactly.
And that is just because, I remember that being a whole thing. Well, we just don't have time. We don't have time to work out. We don't have time to take Ez on a walk. We don't have time to, and it's like, no, you do. You just, and it's like, I'm kind of rolling my eyes at myself because it's like, I hear that a lot on like Instagram reels and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you made, but it's true. Like you really do. You do make time for what is important to you.
And the time that gets stolen is largely because you don't have a game plan in place going into it. Like think about a football team that's going out there without an offensive script. It's going to be chaos. Yeah. They're not going to be able to do things they want to do if they didn't prep for it. And this doesn't mean that you need to spend detailing out in a massive chart of like how you're going to accomplish the day. It could just be something as like, hey, today I need to finish this and send these emails. Yeah. And that's the day. And like, if you know that there's like a busy day, like we'll talk to each other about our work day. Hey, what are you working on today? I'm working on this and this. Okay, cool. I just needed to know. Or like, hey, I got to finish this today. Okay, well, I'm going to help you make sure you get that finished because I don't have anything major. Like you have to work together on that and you have to really figure out, hey, that's how we're going to do this. And that doesn't just apply to the freelance world. Like if you're a freelancer, this is extra important because
that applies to life too.
There's nobody accounting for your time but you.
Yeah.
Like, so in life, it also accounts, like you're saying, like even if you're not a freelancer and you're just a creative or you just work a 9 to 5, like this is all crucial stuff that you have to really lock in on and like make it sustainable. Don't just be the like, that's right, I'm going to kick butt next month. Great. Awesome. How are you going to kick butt for 6 months?
Yeah.
How are you going to kick butt for 12 months? make it sustainable, and little increments are better than, boom, I ran a mile today and then I won't run another one. Like it's awesome. Like if you sprint a mile, that's great. But the person walking 5 miles is going to beat you every single time if you only sprint 1 mile.
Yep.
Like they may have had a slower pace and slower time, but their consistency will beat you. We used to, when I coached lacrosse, we used to have a saying, which was hard work beats talent every single time. If you're willing to put in, like you may not be the most talented. And this is something I posted on my threads, which was like, hey, I might not be the most talented, and this is my mindset now. Fine, I'll accept that I'm not the most talented. But you know what? I'm not going to let anybody outwork me. I'm not going to let anybody beat me with their talent for the simple fact that I didn't try hard. Like that has to be how we operate, is like, hey, I'm not going to let this client go. I'm not going to let this job through. I'm not going to let these other things fall into place. I'm not going to let life tell me how to live. My goal, get off the island and collect some coconuts to make it so I can survive, but I'm not making a home here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the main thing.
Well, that's solid.
But we are out of time. So we'll continue talking about this more throughout the year. And we're also going to post some more on Instagram because I think some cool stuff coming. So
sustainability.
About sustainability. Sustainability is the word.
Yes.
So guys, thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful new year. I guess it's too late to say Happy New Year, but hey, go kick butt.
Go kick butt.
Sustainably.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast. If you enjoy the 626 podcast, the best thing you can do for us is to share it with a friend and leave a 5-star review. It helps us a lot to get discovered.
And be sure to check us out on Instagram at 626podcast.